This will start to make sense very soon. What is your... Do you have a religious background?
I would say I would designate myself as a pagan. I'm a druid. A druid,
Okay.
a bard, I suppose certain elements of witchcraft. That would be my background.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to start reading this, okay?
Yep.
So for everybody who's listening, hello, my name is Micah Dank. I'm an astrotheologist. That's all going to make sense to you very soon. What I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you a presentation that gets me in trouble, because this is information that has to get out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you this screen right now. This is the first slide in my presentation. What I want you to know about it is that the reason I'm reading this to you is because you're going to start to see the patterns and the things that I'm talking about, and you're going to ask the question to yourself, okay, but why did they do this? And I'm going to answer that right now, and then I'm going to read it to you later to reinforce it when it makes a little bit more sense. What is the point of this that I'm about to show you? We take for granted we have calendars, clocks, watches, weathermen. The ancients didn't have any of that. They had sundials. In the Bible, they worked on dream interpretations for harvest. They had to know things. They needed to know Taurus is when you put the plow on the bull and plant as above, so below. The Bible is an encoded farmer's almanac and was the knowledge of staying alive, the most important thing. They would look at the stars and see all this movement and make stories up about them and pass them down to their children, then them to their children, etc. Eventually they learned how to write and they wrote them down, and they evolved from Sumerian to Babylonian to Egyptian to Judaism in the Old Testaments, then to the Christians in the New Testaments, then to the Quran, then to the Book of Mormon, the text, the Apocrypha, the Colburn Bible. I mean, it is in everything. And I'm going to show you that in this two-part series. Let me read you this quote real quick because I rather like it. My point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories, and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically, and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. So, everyone, this is the zodiac, okay? Now, a couple of things that I want you to know before we start. If we're in the part of the story that talks about Aries, which is the ram, this is right here. If we're in the part of the story that talks about the bull, that's Taurus, that is right here. If you're in a sign, you can only talk about that sign. However, there are these dividing lines that exist, and they don't exist in the sky. When you look in the sky, you can't actually see them. But what they actually represent is what's known as a cusp or a handover date. It's a 3-day period at the end of a sign and at the beginning of another sign where the energies blend and hand over to each other. If in the story you're at a cusp, you can talk about either the ram or the bull, for example. And that goes for the entire zodiac too. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that you have Aries the ram and Taurus the bull and Pisces is the fish. So when you're talking about Aries right here, the two connecting signs would be Taurus and Pisces. That's a pattern that you can make. Another pattern that you could make is if you have Aries right here, you have what's known as the opposing sign, which would be Libra, which is right here. So what I want you to know is that as I trace the astrology in these holy texts, not only do they only make these two patterns, or not only do they make patterns, but it's always either opposing signs or connecting signs. And that's what I want you to take away from this so far, okay? So, there's questions that you can ask in the Bible. How Jesus was able to heal the blind. How he walked on water. How he turned water into wine. Why he had 12 disciples. Why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas. Why was he dead for 3 days? Why is his birthday on December 25th? And all of that is astrology. And I'm going to show this to you, Kate. I'm going to make a case for this. Now, Genesis 1:14 says, "Let lights appear in the sky to separate the day," that's the sun, "from the night," that's the moon. "Let them be signs," that's the zodiac, to mark the seasons, days, and years. That's the Farmer's Almanac part I was talking to you about. So I'm going to write all over my presentation and draw circles and all this kind of stuff just to highlight stuff. So if you guys are watching this, please keep an eye on this. Instead of just listening to this, try and actually look at the presentation. Now, each zodiac sign is called a house, or an era, or an eon, or a sign, or a mansion. There are definitely many words that are used to illustrate it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the 12 signs of the zodiac in a new way that you haven't heard. And I'm going to tell you the stories behind it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain them to you. There's going to be keywords at the... Yeah?
May I ask, when I do astrology charts, I use the 13th sign. I include the sign of the serpent.
So you do Vedic.
Yes. You just stick with the 12.
No. It's about 90% tropical and 10% Vedic. You'll see.
Okay.
They mentioned both. For those of you who don't understand what she was just talking about, if you look at the zodiac wheel right here, you see 12 equidistant slices of the pie. This is tropical astrology. This is Western astrology. And what she's doing is right here between Scorpio and Sagittarius. You have a 13th sign. The sun doesn't actually follow it on the ecliptic. It's called Ophiuchus. It's a man holding a basket with a serpent. If you look at the Sagittarius is the horseman. It's the horseman on the bow and the arrow. So, Kate, there's a scripture in the Bible that says the snake, which is Ophiuchus right here, or technically serpents, that's the sign. It's called serpents. That's the name of the snake. Ophiuchus is the man holding the snake. So you have Sagittarius, the man on the horse with the bow and the arrow. There's a scripture that says the serpent, because the man's holding the serpent's head is facing Sagittarius. So it says Dan will become like a serpent and bite the heel of the horse, and the man will fall off. And that's what they're talking about. They're talking about Ophiuchus right here, or serpens, right next to Sagittarius. The head is facing this, so the serpent's head bites the horse right here. So let me continue. And the other thing about her astrology that she uses when she does charts is it's the actual size of the constellations. For example, Virgo over here, in her astrology, is about a month and a half long, because it would come out to about here to here, because it's the actual size of the constellation. Virgo's enormous. Whereas Scorpio is only, I believe, 6 days. So it would be from here to here. So it's the actual size of the constellation. The way I describe this, Kate, to people who don't understand it, is imagine me and you are at a party together, and we decide to go, we're going to take separate Ubers, but we're going to go meet up at a place for dinner. Now we each get into the car from the same place, and each of us are in a different car. The GPS may take us both in completely different directions, but we end up at the same place. That's how these two astrologies work together.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me start with the signs. The first sign that I talk about is Aquarius, which is represented by the man with the water pitcher right here. Now, technically, Aries begins the year, March 21st. But the reason I start with Aquarius is because Aquarius and the next sign, Pisces, are both water signs, and I want to show you how they're both water. The story of Aquarius, one of the early iterations, goes back to the story of Zeus and the young boy. So the story of Zeus and the young boy is that Zeus saw a 14-year-old blonde boy on Earth, and he wanted him on Mount Olympus with him. And incidentally, I don't know if you know this, Kate, but Mount Olympus is actually a real place on Earth. And I don't think any of the Greeks ever went up there to see if the gods were there.
I grew up in Greece, so I do know that, yes, there is a place called Mount Olympus.
Exactly.
And it's a forbidden place. So I grew up just outside Athens, and we toured the areas, but we're not allowed up.
So nobody actually went up there to see if, like, Zeus was up there partying. So anyway, the story goes, Zeus ends up bargaining with the boy's father, because the boy's father's like, no, he's too young, he can't go, and this, and Zeus is like, but I really want him, so take this and this and this, I'll give you all this stuff. the boy's allowed to go up. So Zeus brings him up, and while he's up there, he's feeding all the gods like this out of this water pitcher, something called ambrosia, which was the nectar that the gods drank. And he's doing this day in and day out, day in and day out, and he's having such a monotonous life that he gets so frustrated one day, he goes to the edge, and he pours it out right here. That's where this pouring out is symbolizing from. He pours out the ambrosia, which causes a flood on Earth, and that's where the Greeks get their flood story from. Now, Zeus, who's usually an unpredictable, very sexually deviant, malevolent god, he's just difficult, dude, was going to punish him. But in a moment of self-reflection, he's like, you know what? Which was rare for Zeus. But in a moment of self-reflection, he was like, you know what? I probably shouldn't have done that. He was a young boy, he had friends, he had family, and he shouldn't have been up here. So instead of punishing him, what he does is he immortalizes him as the constellation Aquarius that you see right here. So the key words would be man, because Aquarius is the sign of the man, whereas Virgo is the sign of the woman. Baptism, because this is how you baptize someone. Water pitcher, because this is a water pitcher. Stream, river, pond, lake, ocean, sea. Because of the liquid here, even though Aquarius is an air sign, it's used to encode water bodies. Whereas Pisces is a sign of the two fish in the water, it's the mutable water sign. So the same, stream, river, pond, lake, sea, ocean. So the first two I talk about, which is why I started with Aquarius, is water. And whether you know whether it's Pisces water or Aquarius water that they're talking about has to do with the verbiage that they use, and I'm gonna show you that in the second half of the presentation. Now, Aries is the ram, and in Aries you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night. There's also 3 different types of Passovers that occur. The oldest and most prevalent one is the day, March 21st. That's the day the sun passes over the equator. Passes over the equator and makes its way back to its height in the summer solstice. In Judaism, you have the Passover. That's when the angel of death is going to pass over all the houses in Egypt and anyone that doesn't have the ram or the lamb's blood to delineate the fact that they are the people of Aries. The Jews are the people of Aries. The Christians are the people of Pisces, the Egyptians are the people of the age of Taurus. We'll get into all of that. But basically, you have the lamb or the ram's blood on their doorposts so that their firstborn son doesn't get killed. Then in Christianity, this becomes the resurrection of God's son. See, they have been solar deities throughout history. And Christ is no different, and I'm going to show you that because that's the basis of this presentation. Now, the key words would be ram, lamb, shepherd, or ram's horn. Notice how the Jews are the people of Aries, the ram, and during the high holidays they blow the ram's horn in the. There you go. Taurus is the bull. And when you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that it's as above, so below. You see the bull in the sky, you have to put the plow on the bull so that you can plant the seeds so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. So whenever you see bull, ox, calf, or cow, that's Taurus. Gemini is the sign of the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, who I'm going to revert back to later, so remember those names. Whose sister was Helen of Troy. This is the story of Achilles. So whenever you're talking about twins or brothers, that's Gemini. Cancer is the crab. The crab in the ancient Egyptian times was known as the scarab, so whenever you hear crab or beetle, they're talking about Cancer. So let me show you what the sun does and why Cancer is the crab right here. What the sun does is, on December 25th, it's going to rise a degree on its axis. On December 26th, it's going to rise an additional degree. 27th, an additional degree. What I'm doing right here is not to scale, Kate, but what I'm doing right here is to show you that the sun is going to march through all the zodiac constellations, rising a degree a day. Then when it gets up to here, this is the height, this is June 21st. That's the summer solstice. That's the longest day of the year, the shortest night of the year. What the sun then does is on the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, for 3 consecutive days, it's not going to rise an additional degree or lower a degree. What it does is it's going to stay at that exact same degree for 3 days. Hence, the idea of it walking sideways. And why is Cancer the crab? Because the crab is the creature that walks sideways. Then on June 25th, it's going to lower a degree. On the 26th, it's going to lower another degree. Now the nights are getting longer, the days are getting shorter. It's going to do this again, follow the opposite pattern, until December 21st. That's the longest night of the year, the shortest day of the year. The ancient Egyptians would look out into the sky, and they would notice that the sun does not crack the horizon. So they would say that the sun was dead. Then what it's going to do is it's going to walk sideways for 3 days, just like it did in Cancer. Now suddenly God's sun was dead for 3 days. We're on December 25th, or the birth of all the ancient gods, the sun comes back to life. It's born again. The risen Savior, the light of the world, comes back to life. And it does this every single year. Rise a degree a day, stop, walk sideways for 3 days, drop a degree a day, stop, walk sideways for 3 days. Every year, like clockwork, it does this. Now, Leo is the king. He's the lion, he's the king of the jungle, or the king of the savannah. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you're talking about lion, lioness, or cub, you're talking about Leo. Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk, which I'm highlighting right here. Why? Because back in the day, you plant in Taurus, and then in Virgo, the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin or woman, because Virgo is the sign of the woman, wheat, grain, seed, barley, corn, these are all grainy things that were harvested thousands of years ago in the northern hemisphere, and I'm going to explain why the northern hemisphere is important. Thousands of years ago, this is when you would get that. So to raise the wheat would be the bread, the barley would be the beer, and I'll show you an example in the second half of the presentation about the corn, because a lot of people say corn wasn't up there at that time. Yes, it was. Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over, or technically passes under, the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. Libra is also wine season, which is when you plant for the grapes in Taurus, you press the wine here. Libra is also olive season, so you do the same thing. You press the olives to get the holy oil. So all law-related things, like law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, wine, vineyard, grapes, wine press, olive oil, or olive oil. So all law, all grapes and wine, and all olives is Libra. Then Scorpio is the scorpion, and he is the betrayer. When a scorpion attacks you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. And it's where the mafia gets their kiss of death from. It's why Judas betrayed Jesus with a kiss. He could have stoned him. He could have pointed him out in a crowd. He could have hugged him. He betrayed him with a kiss because of the kiss of death, because of the Scorpio. Now the sun is judged in Libra, and it's betrayed in Scorpio. And then in Sagittarius, right here, this is where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun and kill the sun. Why? Because the last day of Sagittarius is December 21st. The sun is at its lowest point. It cannot rise any lower. It's dead, and I explained that to you already. The last day of Sagittarius, December 21st, is the first day of winter. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, or horseman, that's Sagittarius. And then here, you have Capricorn. So why is Capricorn the goat? Well, December 25th, the sun rises a degree on its axis, and then every day it rises. What the sun does is it makes the climb up what we know as the Great Mountain, or the Zodiac. And it starts the climb up the mountain in Capricorn, which is the goat, the same way the mountain goats can scale a mountain, which is why it's Capricorn. So that's why Capricorn is a goat and Cancer is a crab. So, beside this, these are the 12 signs. Do you have anything you want to add or any questions?
No, I think it's fun. As I stated, I'm pagan, so we know the astrological place, times to harvest, times to plant, what to reap,
Uh-huh.
when to sow. I may not be, I don't necessarily follow Bibles or scriptures because I think they've been altered quite a lot and they've come in many different forms. But the actual, I do know of the third day, all of the Jesus mythology is actually a astrology it's all there. If on the third day he rose again, we're talking about the sun, not
Right.
the son of.
Right.
It's playing with language.
Hmm.
I get what you're saying so far, and I agree with it because it is a planting thing. It is a fertility ritual. It is, if you want good crops, you have to follow this. And how our ancestors used it to survive.
Exactly. So you're on point. So I'm going to just show you the astrology in these holy texts. And I'm going to
Yep.
show you that the Bible is so much more. So these are the names for Jesus that they give him in church. Notice here that the sun is behind Jesus' head. And in every picture that you find on the internet, including baby Jesus pictures, the sun is always behind him. Right behind him, because it's telling you that he's the sun. Now, when Capricorn the goat, when Jesus or the Son of God is in Capricorn, the goat, he is the scapegoat of Israel. When the Sun is in the sign of the man sign Aquarius, he's the Son of Man. When the Sun is in, or Jesus is in Pisces, the two fish, he's the fisher of men, and it's also why he could feed the masses with two fish. When the sun is in Aries or the ram, he is the Lamb of God or the Good Shepherd. Cancer, the scarab, the beetle. St. Augustine called Jesus the Good Beetle. When the sun is in Leo, the lion, he is the Lion of Judah. The lady holding the stalk of wheat, Virgo, he is born of a virgin, and he is called the bread of life. Libra is the scales of justice. He is known as the Just One. Then he's betrayed in Scorpio. He dies in Sagittarius, and it's why he's worshipped on the Sun Day. They changed it from the Jewish worship of the Saturday or the Saturn Day. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start sharing scriptures, and I'm going to show you how this works. Deuteronomy 32. He gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky ground. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs and goats. They had the best rams from Bashan and the finest wheat. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. So let me explain the honey and the milk real quick. So in the sign Cancer, you have a tightly knit group of stars right here called the beehive cluster. And that's where the honey comes from. The beehive cluster originally was titled the manger, if you trace it far back enough. This is the first day of summer. The milk, right here in Sagittarius, right here you have the center of the Milky Way galaxy, whose centers in Sagittarius. This right here, this day right here, this cusp, is the first day of winter. So from your first day of summer all the way until your first day of winter is your land of milk and honey. It's not a place on earth. It's the right half of the zodiac. We know that the olive oil is Libra, because that's when it's cultivated. The lambs and the goats are Aries and Capricorn. So right now, we have Sagittarius, Cancer, the lamb, Aries, and the goat, Capricorn. They had the best rams, that's Aries, from Bashan, and the finest wheat. They drank the best wine from the juice of red grapes. So the wheat is Virgo, the wine is red grapes are Libra, and the bull is Taurus. So Virgo, Libra, and Taurus. So you have these two connecting signs, these two connecting signs, these two connecting signs. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In that one passage, Kate, there are 7 zodiac signs mentioned. Now, in the Mount of Olives, Jesus led his disciples to the Mount of Olives. So let's highlight olives. After his last Passover. So he could teach them a few more things, pray, then wait for Judas to betray him. While walking to the Mount of Olives, he gave the parable of the true vine. So, Passover takes place here in Aries, where right after that, they walk to the Mount of Olives. Well, the olives are Libra. That's the opposing sign. Then they're waiting for Judas to betray him. Who's the betrayer? Well, that's the next connecting sign over, Scorpio. So right now you have an opposing sign and a connecting sign. But they said they're waiting for the betrayal. He didn't betray, so let's get rid of that. You're actually still in Libra. While you're in Libra, which is law, wine, and oil, remember, he gives the parable of the true vine. So that's how you use the zodiac to tell the story. Now in Revelation 4:7, the first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. The first living creature was like a lion, that's Leo. The second was like an ox, that's Taurus. The third had a face like a man, that's Aquarius. The fourth was like a flying eagle. In astrology, the Scorpio scorpion is the belly-crawling creature. It's the lowest form of life on Earth. It slithers on its belly. It crawls. It's a punishment. In the Garden of Eden, the first thing that God does after the deception is actually not to kick them out. That's not the first thing he does. The very first thing he does is he takes the legs away from the snake to make it slither on its belly. It's punishment. In astrology, the evolved, also known as the ascendant form of Scorpio, is the eagle. The eagle is the highest flying form of life on Earth. The eagle will evolve into the phoenix, which is the story of Christ, which is the story of the sun. It's a flaming ball of life that metaphorically dies and is risen from its ashes. The dove is another evolution. There's 8 evolutions of Scorpio, which is irrelevant for what I'm about to teach, but suffice for those 4 that I've given an example. So Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio are the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. So people who don't know what that is, there's 12 zodiac signs right here. There's 4 seasons, so there's 3 signs in each season. So these 3 are summer. This is fall. This is winter. And this is spring. Can you still hear me?
I can, yes. There's some interference, but...
Alright, it went away. Okay. So these are the 4 seasons, guys. Now, the first sign in each season, right here, are known as your cardinal signs. That's why you have cardinals in church. If I were to take one of these 12 zodiac signs, I could break them down into 3 10-day segments called deacons, which is why you have deacons and cardinals in church, because it's astrology. The first sign is known as the cardinal sign. If you connect them, they form the cross of God's Son that he carries to his death. Sorry for it being so sloppy. The second sign, which is what the 4-headed creature we were just talking about was, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, is known as the fixed sign.
The cross also represents the 4 seasons. So
Correct.
you have the cross in the circle is the 4
Exactly.
seasons. It's a very, very ancient symbol of having a cross in a circle. And
Yes,
that's
yes,
what
yes.
you have here.
Correct. Now these that I just highlighted right here, look, Leo and Aquarius are opposing signs. Taurus and Scorpio are opposing signs. They make an X through it. Now watch this. So this is the cardinal sign, this is the fixed sign, and the third sign is known as the mutable or the water sign that takes you out of the season. The reason it's called fixed is because if you look at it, it's between the 2 signs. The 2 other signs. It's fixed in the season. So Leo is the middle of summer. Scorpio is the middle of fall. Aquarius is the middle of winter. Taurus is the middle of spring. So, if we read this again, the first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. I mean, either it's a four-headed creature that's going to come down and terrorize us, or it's just making this pattern in the zodiac. Now, Ezekiel 10:14 says each of the cherubim had four faces. One face was that of a cherub, the second the face of a human being, the third the face of a lion, the fourth the face of an eagle. It's the same thing. And in the second half of the presentation, or in the third part of the presentation, I'm going to show you Ezekiel's wheel. Now, Revelation 12, a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon, with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its heads. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. So, a woman clothed with the sun is a metaphor. The woman is Virgo, for the sun being in Virgo. If the sun is in Virgo, the moon will be at her feet. So to explain that one, this is also a clock. This is a 12 zodiac signs, and there's 24 hours a day in each sign. I'm sorry, there's 24 hours a day total. 12 zodiac signs. So the sun spends 2 hours a day in each sign. So right here at the bottom, this is midnight to 2. This is 2 to 4. This is 4 to 6. This is 6 to 8. This is 8 to 10. This is 10 to 12. This is 12 to 2, the apex, when the sun is at its highest and hottest. This is 2 to 4. And this is 4 to 6. And we were looking for Virgo, remember? So that's 4 to 6 p.m. So what does that mean? Well, simply, if the sun is in Virgo between 4 to 6 p.m., the moon will be at her feet. The sun is still out at 4 to 6 p.m. So if the sun is out, the moon is not yet out. Metaphorically, the moon is at her feet. Whereas if the moon was up, the sun would be at her feet. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous dragon. Its tail, that I'm highlighting right here, swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. Well, the constellation Draco, which is the dragon, its tail goes from Aries to Sagittarius, which is 4/12 of the signs, or 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. This is celestial poetry. This is star poetry, what this book is. Matthew 10:16, behold, I send you forth as sheep, that's Aries, in the midst of wolves. There's a constellation called Lupus, which means the wolf, which is in Libra. Those are opposing signs. So be as wise as serpents, that's serpens, part of Ophiuchus, which is right here, and be as harmless as doves. The dove is the evolution of Scorpio. So in this famous line, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves, so be as wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Opposing sign, and then 3 connecting signs. So I've given examples of astrotheology in the Old Testament, as well as the New Testament. I've been accused of cherry-picking verses from the Bible to prove a point, so let's take a much longer passage and see if we can decode it as well. Are you familiar with the story of Job?
Yeah.
Do you mind explaining it to your listeners?
No, I'm not a theologist. I am familiar, as in I take it as a bunch of fairy tales. I understand that there is a lot more to it, and what you are proving is that it is a planting guide, or at least Revelations would be looking into the future. So it's a divination, which I can say that I use astrology to divine. A lot of it is, what I use is intuition. You use it just as a key. However, this is more specific, and I think it would be generalized. I don't quote Bible because I'm not Christian.
Okay,
I'll leave that.
I'll explain the story of Job to everyone.
Yeah.
Job is the oldest book in the Bible. And I can get into the fact that where it was placed, it's not the first book in the Bible being the oldest book in the Bible, where it's placed towards the middle, towards the end of the Bible, has to do with the Synod of Jamnia in 100 AD, which I'll get into at some other point. But what I want to let you know is the book of Job is the oldest book, and it's a story about this guy Job, where we get the word job from. And Job has everything. He has family, he has animals, he has kids, he has friends, he has money, and he's God's most faithful servant. So Satan goes up to God and says, listen, the only reason that he is so faithful is because he has everything. Let me take it all away and he'll curse you. And God thinks about it, and then he says, you know what? That's fine. The only caveat to this is that you can't take his life. but you could take everything away. And then everything that I just mentioned that he had suddenly is gone. And he's sitting there with boils on a rock one time, and for about 20 pages in the Bible, he's just pouring his heart and his soul out to God. And he's asking God to reply to him. What I'm going to read to you is God's reply to him. So that's all I wanted to share.
Yeah.
Job 38:32. Can you lead forth the Mazaroth? The word Mazaroth was intentionally untranslated because they don't want you to know, and you can look this up, that the word Mazaroth means zodiac. They don't want you to know that. That's why they leave the word Mazaroth, because they think you're not going to look it up. But you will look it up, and you will find that out. Mazaroth over time becomes Mazalot, which survives in Judaism today as Mazel Tov, which means good fortune from the stars. So what's the Lord's challenge to Job? He says, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Well, these are open, out in the open celestial metaphors, not hidden astrotheology. Can you bring forth the constellation in their seasons, or lead a bear out with its cubs? The constellations are the zodiac above, and the bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, part of the Big Dipper. Who can tip over the water jars of the heavens? Well, there's literally a man in Aquarius tipping over the water jar in heaven. Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lion? That's Leo. Now let's pause for a second. The Pleiades are in Taurus. Orion's belt is between Taurus and Gemini. The bear and its cubs are between Gemini and Cancer. And the lion is Leo. And then we have Aquarius right here. Just to open Job 38:32, this is God's reply. He says, do you know the zodiac? And then he starts spitting all these animals out. Well, we have Aquarius here, and we have these 4 connecting signs right here. That's just to open. But it goes on. Who provides food for the raven? That's the constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders on Virgo. Do you watch where the doe bears her fawn? That's Mriga, meaning deer, and is located in Orion. Who let the wild donkey go free? That's Acellus Borealis, meaning donkey, and is located in Cancer. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? That's Taurus. Do you give the horse its strength? Who's the horse zodiac sign?
Well, Capricorn.
No, the horse.
That's the horse. The Cantor, Centaur.
Sagittarius.
I don't remember. Sagittarius. Okay.
Okay, so we know.
I don't look at it like this. This is a way of looking at it that is fascinating, and I would say I haven't looked at it this way. The fact that the Bible then is not a book of morals for Christians. What you're saying is that it is an astrological map. What were they saying? Am I going too far ahead?
No, it's fine. The horse is Sagittarius. We know that because it mentioned the horse. But if you keep reading, it laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy away from the sword. The quiver, they mention the quiver. A quiver sits on the side of the horse and holds the arrows, because Sagittarius is the man on the horse with the bow and the arrow. Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? The eagle is the evolution of Scorpio. Finally says, can you pull in Leviathan with fish hooks? That's Pisces. So, yeah. We have these 2 connecting signs. We have these 2 connecting signs. And then we have these 5 signs in a row. This is God's reply to Job. The only ones that he left out, he didn't talk about the ram or the shepherd. He didn't talk about the wine, oil, or law. And he didn't talk about the goat. But this is 3 of the 4 cardinal signs. So there's patterns in what they have, and there's patterns in the missing 2. So answer the questions at the beginning. How was Jesus able to heal the blind? Well, let me answer this. All of these are going to be answered as the Son, okay? The Son. Not the Son, the Son. I know they're homophones, but they're...
S-U...
Yeah, the S-U-N. So, the story in the Bible goes, the blind man comes up to Jesus and he says, will you heal me? And Jesus says, yeah, through your faith and everything, absolutely. So he puts his fingers in dirt, he spits on it, and he wipes it on the guy's eyes. It falls off the guy's eyes, he's able to see. That's the story. But the sun does the same thing too, because remember how Virgo is between 4 and 6? Well, after Virgo is Libra, that's 6 to 8. Around that time period, the sun's going to start to go down. And when the sun goes down, we're blind. We can't see anything. The sun rises in the morning and touches our eyes, and we're given the healing of the blind, the sight. How he walked on water, we know in the story he walked on water, but the sun does too. If you've ever gone fishing or been on a boat or been at a beach and seen the sun walk on the water. And in Greek, which is what the Jews wrote the New Testament as, because remember there was no Christians back then. The Jews wrote the New Testament, and they wrote it in Greek. Christos means anointed one or oil. Doesn't oil also walk on water?
Okay, I am going to say that the Bible, and a lot of these verses, are very astrologically orientated. How do you interpret them? What are they actually telling you apart from look to the skies?
Do you remember at the very beginning how I told you I was going to read something about what the purpose of this is? I'm going to read it to you again.
Okay.
So the sun walks on water, Jesus walks on water, the sun walks on water, and Christos, the anointed one, or the oil, also walks on water. This is a triple entendre. How he turned water into wine. This is a procedure. It's not a parlor trick. So the story goes Jesus turns water into wine. But how this works is that the reason God is considered a man and Mother Earth is considered a woman only has to do with one factor, believe it or not. And it has to do with the rain, the sacred fluid. In Hebrew, the word is shemen. We get the word semen from it, the sacred fluid. You have to think about it like this, metaphorically. When it rains, God is ejaculating onto Earth. And then from her belly, trees grow, food grows, things come to life. So what happens is, as above, so below. In Taurus, you see the bull, you put the plow on the bull. And then that's April showers bring May flowers. That's Taurus. It rained, you plant the grape seeds, and then it rains and it rains and it rains. In Libra, you pick the grapes and you turn it into wine. That's how you turn God's water into wine. Why he had 12 disciples, I'm going to show you that right now, but I need another zodiac wheel. Hold on. Come on, come on, come on. There we go. Let me copy this. Okay. So, let's talk disciples. Gemini right here. The story of Castor and Pollux Troy. Gemini is the twins. Out of the 12 disciples, because there's 12 zodiac signs and they each line up, this would be Thomas Didymus. Because in Hebrew the word ta'om, or tam, means twin. Whereas in Greek the word Didymus means twin. Scorpio right here is Judas the betrayer with the kiss from the scorpion. Libra right here is James. He's known as the just one. Aquarius right here is John the Baptist. This is obvious. He's baptizing everybody with the water pitcher. Pisces is Simon Peter. Now, Catherine goes to Kate. Michael goes to Micah. Thomas goes to Tom. These names make sense, but Simon to Peter doesn't make sense unless you understand astrology. Simon's job, or Peter's job, Simon's job was a fisherman. So the fish are Pisces, so we know he's Pisces, but how do we know that? The ruling planet of Pisces is Jupiter, or Jupiter. So I'm not going to give you all 12 zodiac signs, but I just gave you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples of how the disciples are all different zodiac signs.
Hang on 1 second.
Now, why was he betrayed with a kiss by Judas?
We've just lost a bit. Hang on 1 second. The internet connection between us is a bit wobbly.
December 25th? We went over
Are you still there? Hang on one. We've missed a bit. Sorry, we couldn't hear you there.
What was the last thing you heard?
If it about Pisces, the fish was Peter.
Yes.
Back a bit.
The ruling planet.
Disconnect. If we disconnect, I will send you another link, and we'll have to rebuild it again, the net.
Okay.
But if it all goes blank, I will send you another link, and we'll start again from here. Okay.
Okay.
But yes, we were. Go ahead.
Simon Peter, because the ruling planet of Pisces is Jupiter, or Jupiter. So I've given you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples of how the zodiac signs and the disciples match up. All 12 of them do. I'm not going to go through all 12. I just wanted to give you a bunch, though. Now, this science only works for people in the northern hemisphere, and there's a reason for that. The Egyptians, the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims are all based out of the northern hemisphere. For example, June 21st is the summer solstice, is actually the winter solstice in Australia, New Zealand, much of South Africa and South America. What does that mean, Kate? So what does that mean?
I lived in South Africa for about 10 years. Yes, everything is reversed. So winter solstice,
exactly. So Taurus,
summer solstice, and everything is the other way around, and even the skies.
Right. So Taurus, as above, so below, when you plant. In the southern hemisphere, you just go to the opposing sign. You plant in Scorpio. Virgo is when you cultivate the wheat, and the barley, and the corn, and all that stuff. And in the southern hemisphere, you just go to the opposing sign, and you cultivate in Pisces. That's how you figure this out. But it doesn't stop there. It's not just random passages in the Bible that can be decoded this way. We're going to go through the entire book of Revelation to show how deep this runs. So I'm going to demystify the book of Revelation that people are terrified about. Revelation 4:7, this is the four-headed creature. This is the fixed signs. We did this already. I'm going to skip it. Revelation 5:5, then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the seven seals. Well, the ruling planet of Leo is the sun of God, or the sun. That's where the sun is at its apex. It's the summer, and the glory of Christ is there. So, of course, the lion is able to open the seals. Now, I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the seven seals. Then I heard the voice of the four living creatures, that's the fixed signs, say in a voice like thunder, come. Well, of course the Lamb has to open the seals, the first one, because the Lamb is Aries, and Aries is the beginning of the year. So of course it has to open the first one, because it's the beginning of the year. You have the four living creatures, and then they say a voice like thunder, a voice like thunder. In Hebrew, the word for thunder translates to voices. So when Moses was on Mount Sinai, and everyone down there heard thunder, they thought God was talking. Revelation 6:2, I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow. I mean, this is just Sagittarius. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the four living creatures, again, the four fixed signs, saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages. That's the bread and the beer, that's Virgo. And do not damage the oil and the wine. You see how the oil and the wine are put together because that's Libra? Well, Virgo and Libra, two examples of each, are connecting signs. I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red. So why did they mention the goat and the moon? Well, if you look at the zodiac, Cancer is up here. The ruling planet of that is the moon. And down here is Capricorn. And that's the goat. And those are opposing signs. Then I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. So many different Christian denominations believe that only 144,000 get to go to heaven and see God. But there are 7 chakras. The root has 4 petals, the sacral has 6. The solar plexus has 10, the heart has 12, and the throat has 16, which equals 48. The third eye chakra is represented by 96 and only has 2 petals because it's 2 times as powerful as the lower chakras. So 48 times 2 is 96. The crown chakra is 1,000 times more powerful than the lower 6 chakras. When you add the lower 6, you get 96 plus 48 equals 144. You times that by 1,000, you get your 144,000. What it's trying to tell you is that when you've activated all your chakras, that is when you get to go see God. Revelation 9:3, and out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and were given power of scorpions on the earth. Well, this one, so locusts, in about 5 to 10 minutes when we go through the book of Matthew, I'm going to show you how the locust in Leviticus 11 are a food source. So they're a food source. So locusts are good because they're a food source. But what's the power of the scorpion? I told you before that the scorpion betrays. That's what it does. So how do locusts betray? Well, in a small quantity, they're food, but in a large quantity, they're literally one of the 10 plagues. So that's how it betrays. The locusts looked like horses, that's Sagittarius, prepared for battle. On their heads they wore something like crowns of gold. The crown of gold is the sun, because it's golden, so that's the sun in Sagittarius. And their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had tails with stingers like scorpions. So you have Sun in Sagittarius, you have Sagittarius and Scorpio. Those are connecting signs. And you have Virgo and Libra. Virgo and Leo, I apologize for the lion's teeth. Virgo and Leo are connecting signs. Then you have Revelation 12. This is the dragon, which we did already, so I'm going to skip it. Revelation 13:2. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear and a mouth like that of a lion. There is a constellation in Gemini called Camelopardalis, which is broken down into two words. Camelos, or camel, which is camel. Pardalis, which means leopard. The camel leopard, which was the original name for the giraffe, because it looked like a camel leopard. So that's in Gemini. So the beast I saw resembled a leopard, that's Gemini, but had feet like those of a bear, that's in Cancer, Ursa Major, and a mouth like that of a lion. Lion is Leo. Gemini, Cancer, and Leo are 3 signs in a row. Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. Well, the lamb is Aries, and the dragon starts in Aries. So that's just talking about Aries. Cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh and frankincense. I didn't mention this, Kate, because this never came up before, but myrrh and frankincense are actually olive plants. And olives are Libra. And you know what else? Next is the wine, that's also Libra. And the olive oil, that's also Libra. The flour and the wheat is Virgo. Those are connecting signs. The cattle is Taurus. The sheep is Aries. Those are connecting signs. The horse is Sagittarius. I mean, it's in everything. So that's the book of Revelation. So it's really not that scary if you think about it. My point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories, and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically, and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. So now I want to do a deep... I'm sorry?
Nice. I like the expression.
Yeah.
I like the saying. It makes sense.
So what do
you can't take this literally. It is just a mess if you take it literally. The whole thing has to be symbolic and metaphorical and all of that. And it's when people start taking the Bible literally that's really scary. That's where I start backing away.
Right.
It's nothing to do with me.
So let me show you the book of Matthew, okay?
Yep.
This is the first gospel out of the 4. I mean, it's not the oldest one. The Gospel of Luke is, but this is the first one that they put in there. Matthew 3:2. Repent of your sins. You're going to like this a lot, Kate. Repent of your sins and turn to God, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Each gospel begins at one of the 4 major points of the zodiac. That's the cardinal signs. So that's Aries, Libra, Capricorn, and Cancer. The solstices and the equinox. The kingdom of heaven is Leo, whose ruling planet is the sun. This is the only sign that the sun rules over. The closest point to this, out of the 4 signs, is Cancer right here. That's June 21st. So that's where the gospel starts. This is the cusp handover date right here. It's the beginning of the kingdom. Matthew 3:4. John's clothes were woven from coarse camel hair, and he wore a leather belt around his waist. For food he ate locusts and wild honey. If you take the most famous drawing of a man, Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and superimpose it onto the zodiac, we can make sense of this. Now you can use a stick figure. It doesn't have to be the Vitruvian Man. I just want to show you this. Okay, so here's the mouth, and then here's Cancer, and here's the beehive cluster. So he's eating the honey, because the mouth and the head is in Cancer. He's eating the honey. Leviticus 11 that I told you we'd get to. All flying insects that walk on all 4 are regarded to be as unclean by you. There are, however, some flying insects that walk on all 4s that you may eat. Those that have jointed legs for hopping on the ground. Of these you may eat any kind of locust. So there it is. This is why he eats locusts and wild honey. Katydid, cricket, or grasshopper. So when they're trying to tell you a pound of grasshoppers is 3 times as nutritious as a pound of beef, they're getting it from the Bible. That's what they're trying to do. Now,
I'm still not eating grasshoppers.
Good. Now, a little lower down on the body is the clothes made out of camel hair. So the head was in Cancer. So Gemini would be like a little lower on the body, would be like right here. Right? So that would be the clothes made out of camel hair, or the constellation Camelopardalis, which is in Gemini. Moving a little lower on the body, you get the midsection. So now we're in Taurus, which is right around like the belt region of the body. So just so that we're aware, we started in Leo. Then we went into Cancer, the mouth, the beehive cluster, eating the honey and the locusts. Then in Gemini, for the clothes made out of camel hair. And now we're in Taurus, where they talk about the belt. Well, guess what? Taurus is the bull, and the female bull is the cow, which is where you get the leather. Regarding the belt, Orion's belt sits right here between Taurus and Gemini. So to open this gospel, you have 4 zodiac signs. So next would be the baptism. So we were here, right here. Now how do you go from the beginning of Leo to a water sign to signify the baptism? You find its opposing sign. So the cusp of Cancer Leo, which begins it, opposing sign is the cusp of Capricorn Aquarius. Remember, if you're between these two, you could talk about either side, here or here. And Aquarius is the baptism. This is how we see makes a leap from one cusp to the other. The man with the water pitcher is in Aquarius, is personified as John the Baptist with the water. It's important to note, too, that John the Baptist and Jesus are always exactly 6 months apart. When you think about the fact that Jesus is born on December 25th, which is here, and he rises a degree a day, every single day, then John the Baptist must be born here on June 24th, and decrease a degree every single day. This is why in John 3:30 he says, he must increase, but I must decrease. And it's also why St. John's Day is exactly 6 months to the day of the birthday of Jesus in any Catholic calendar, June 24th. So the next story is the temptation of Jesus. So we're going back here. We're going to come back from the baptism, and now we have the temptation of Jesus. Well, this is July 24th right here. Well, what do? He's tempted for 40 days. So just count 40 days. That's all you have to do. Takes you to September 2nd. This is right in the middle of Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. So what's the very next passage? Matthew 4:3. If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become loaves of bread. Here we see the mention of the bread, which tells you the sun is in Virgo. So Leo, and then Virgo, and then next we are in Libra, which is law, wine, and oil, remember? Well, what are the passages? I did not come to abolish the law, and if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. Both law and judgment are Libra. So we started here in Cancer. Then we went to Leo, Virgo, and Libra. So what we did is we started in Leo, and we went 4 signs this way. Now we're going 3 signs this way. So now the beginning of the gospel shows you seven zodiac signs in a row. Matthew 7:15 and 16. Beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep. That's Aries right here. And can you pick the grapes from the thorn bushes? The grapes are in Libra. That's the opposing sign. Later that same day, Jesus left the house, so he left Libra, and sat beside the lake, which puts you right here. This is Aquarius and Pisces, because he's beside the lake. If he was in the lake, he'd be in one of the 2 water signs. But no, he's sitting beside the lake. You got to see how they use the words. It's very important. So this is right here, the cusp between the 2 of them, because he's beside the lake. If you follow its opposing sign, that takes you to Leo, Virgo, cusp. As it's touching Virgo, isn't it ironic that the next parables are the wheat and the weeds, the mustard seed, and the yeast? That all has to do with baking, with bread, which is Virgo. Now moving right along, next is the fishing net parable. So all you got to do is come back along the same path to touch Pisces, which is the 2 fish, So you can talk about the fishing net now. Gemini is the sign of two men, technically twins. However, there's just a short mention of brothers in the next passage. He's just the carpenter's son, and we know Mary, his mother, and his brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. This ends here, at this cusp. How do we know that? Because if you follow this across... Hold on. I shouldn't have done that. Here we go. If you follow this across to its opposing sign, right here, the cusp of Sagittarius Capricorn, that's December 21st. That's the day of death. And what is the very next story? It's the death of John the Baptist. As I've mentioned previously, death comes at the end of Sagittarius. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to show you how Scripture is written right now, because I came up with this. Let's take the sentence which sounds like it could be in the Bible, but isn't. If I say to you, the rulers were divided between war and love, it split the land in half, you could read that as a literal translation. Or, the ruling planet of Aries is Mars, who's the god of war, and its opposing sign, Libra, is ruled by Venus, who is the goddess of love. There is your war and love. And it literally splits the land in half. That's how they make Scripture. Each one of these zodiac signs tells a story or has constellations that are named after things in the story. And they make patterns. And it's how like you're given like homework assignments, right? You're given homework assignments like 4 times 3, 8 times 2, and then you just... they give you examples so that you can learn the overall point. And that's what they do in here. They're giving you examples by going over the overall point of the zodiac. Matthew 14, 17, and 32. But we only have 5 loaves of bread. The bread is Virgo. And the 2 fish. The 2 fish is Pisces. Literally, the 2 fish Pisces. That's why Jesus feeds the masses with 2 fish. These are opposing signs. Then this is the cross of God's Son. We were just in Virgo. And now next is Libra, which is law, wine, and oil, remember. What stories do we get now? The temple tax, law. The unforgiving debtor, law. Divorce and marriage, law. And the parable of the vineyard worker, wine. Virgo and Libra are 2 connecting signs. You still with me?
Yes. I got the point a while back. It is teaching astrology.
Right. I just want to share with everybody that
Yeah.
watches your thing a bunch of this, because it's not just the Bible. The Bible's not original. It's not just the Bible. So,
No, the Bible is definitely not original.
right,
But
so,
what I'm saying is it's not actually telling you a story, it's teaching astrology. It's teaching you the pagan ways of our ancestors of when to plant, when to reap, when to sow, and that sort of thing.
yes, that's one of the things. So I'm almost done. So next is Scorpio, the betrayer. This is where Judas betrays Jesus with a kiss. So you had Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. And then next is the day of death. This is when Jesus is crucified. So, 4 signs in a row. Astrology is a language. If you understand this language, the sky speaks to you.
There you go. Yeah.
Right? So you're starting to see the great implication of this so far. It means that at the very, very least, the Bible is not meant to be taken literally. So let me again, I told you at the beginning that you were going to ask the exact question that you did. What is the point of this? We take for granted we have calendars, clocks, watches, weathermen. The ancients didn't have any of that. They had sundials. In the Bible, they worked on dream interpretations for harvest. They had to know things. They needed to know Taurus is when you put the plow on the bull and plant, as above, so below. The Bible is an encoded farmer's almanac, and was the knowledge of staying alive the most important thing. They would look at the stars and see all this movement and make stories up about them and pass them down to their children. Then them to their children. Eventually they learned how to write, and they wrote them down, and it evolved from Sumerian to Babylonian to Egyptian to Judaism in the Old Testament, then to the Christians in the New Testament, even the Quran, the Book of Mormon. I mean, it's in everything. And again with this quote that you like. My point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. So let me show you how this is used in society. The U.S. was not founded as a Christian nation, no matter how much they try to.
I know. Boy, have they been ramming that down.
Right.
It's not just in the US. Britain, England is meant to be a Christian nation. Britain is a Christian nation. It's a load of rubbish. We were pagan long before. This Christian nationalism has come from America and now is spreading around the world. It's like, no. It didn't help with your Charlie Kirk, because now he's a martyr, and it's like he's like now the forefront of Christian nationalism rising in our country.
Right, but that's not his fault. He didn't deserve to die.
He didn't deserve that, absolutely not, but they're using it. They're using him as a Christian martyr.
Right. Christianity is the most perverted system that ever shone on man. That was Thomas Jefferson. I have found Christian dogma unintelligible. That's Benjamin Franklin. This would be the best of all possible worlds if there were no religion in it. John Adams.
I'll give him that.
The Constitution is the guide which I will never abandon. George Washington. And the day will come when the mystical generation of Jesus, by the Supreme Being as his father in the womb of a virgin, will be classed with the fable of the generation of Minerva in the brain of Jupiter. That's Thomas Jefferson in a letter to John Adams. What influence, in fact, have Christian ecclesiastical establishments had on civil society? In many instances, they have been upholding the thrones of political tyranny. In no instance have they been sent as the guardians of the liberties of the people, like James Madison. The purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe in blood for centuries, James Madison. And this one is from Thomas Paine. This is 250 years old. The Christian religion is a parody on the worship of the sun, in which they put a man called Christ in the place of the sun and pay him the adoration originally paid to the sun.
Yeah. I've read that before. The sun is the sun, as you say, the word, it's there. Right. Okay. Continue. What's next?
Okay, so just a couple of things. Why do they always crash the stock market in Libra? The Panic of 1907, October 1907. Teddy Roosevelt, he was a Republican. Wall Street crash of 1929, October 24th, 1929. That's the handover date to Scorpio. Herbert Hoover, Republican. Black Monday, October 19th, 1987. Ronald Reagan, Republican. Friday the 14th mini crash, George H.W. Bush, October 13th, 1989. Republican. Stock market downturn of 2002, October 9th, 2002, George W. Bush, Republican. 10% in most of the world's indices drop, crash. Handover date to Scorpio, George W. Bush, Republican, October 24th, 2008. You see a pattern?
Yes. This October should be rather entertaining then, shouldn't it?
That's exactly what I'm waiting on. So, obviously there's astrology throughout the Bible. I mean, throughout. But the Roman Catholic Catechism 2116, this is what they have their church congregations read and try and live by. All forms of divination are to be rejected. Recourse to Satan or demons, conjuring up the dead, or other practices falsely supposed to unveil the future. Consulting horoscopes, astrology, palm reading, interpretations of omens and lots, the phenomena of clairvoyance and recourse to mediums all conceal a desire for power over time, history, and in the last analysis other human beings, as well as a wish to conciliate hidden powers. They contradict the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe to God alone. Why would the Roman Catholic Church, if they know that their book is encoded in astrology, ban astrology from their church?
Yeah.
Amazing, right?
Well, the Catholicism makes as much sense as Islam. In other words, but there is a lot. They had a reason for this. They had a damn good reason, because they closed all the mystery schools, and the mystery schools would have been teaching all of this.
Right. So, do you remember this movie by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, so Nicolas Cage right here. Him and his brother's names are Castor and Pollux Troy in the movie. That's literally Gemini.
Yes.
What is John Travolta's name? Sean Archer. Who's the Archer? Sagittarius with the bow and the arrow. Guess what? Those are opposing signs. So they're aware of this in Hollywood. They're aware of what I'm teaching you. There are a ton of characters in Harry Potter that are named after stars or constellations. You have Draco Malfoy, Pollux Black, Sirius Black, Andromeda Black, Regulus Black, Arcturus Black, Cassiopeia Black, Orion Black, and Cygnus Black. In the Batman Begins movie, the evil's character's name is Ra's al Ghul, and if you know astrology, you know the demon star Al-Ghul, which is where he gets his name from. Al-Ghul's fixed in Taurus, by the way. It has a lot of evil connotations to it. I don't know if you work with it, or if you know about it.
No.
No, but Al-Ghul
No.
is known as the demon star. Do you remember the Cranberries song Zombie?
No.
Okay, well, here's Dolores O'Riordan. She's painted gold, and her hairdressing represents the rays of the sun. So this is the scene, and in the very next scene, look, you have the golden sun on the cross, and here's Sagittarius just waiting to shoot her with the bow and the arrow. So they embed this into music videos, into movies, into the stock market, into everything. But it's not just the Bible. If you don't know by now the Bible is not original, you still might have doubts. Here's 1,000 years of ancient holy text, going from 5 Sumerian tablets, the Babylonian Enuma Elish, the Code of Hammurabi, which is where the Jews get their punishment and code of ethics from, to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, to the Gnostic texts, all of them, to the Quran, to the Book of Mormon. I'm still working on the Apocrypha, the Ethiopian Bible, and the Colburn Bible, but they are the same. And this is at the end of the first half of the presentation. So, Kate, tell me what you think of my work.
I think it's good. I mean, get where I understood most of this because I've done it before, because I know the astrology side of thing. I also understand it's exciting. I have to say it's exciting that, it puts a whole bunch of things into place. I'm not good with numbers, right? I've never understood why the religion bulged around numbers. Numbers to me is alien. It's a construct that I can't personally deal with. Now you have amazing people who can do numerology and have combined numerology with astrology and have come up with some similar stuff, especially with the stock market crashes and all of that. And I respect that, but I can't do it because a number is too fixed. I'm fluid. I deal with the ebb and flow of tides. So the lunar tides, all of those sort of tides, the internal and outside of tides. But I can see what the ancients were trying to tell us through these scriptures, which I think is your point. There is messages there within messages. So you haven't got a good morality guide. I like that very much. I did know about sort of the son, Jesus the Son, but I hadn't looked at Revelations. I disregard all of the Bible quotes because, quite frankly, the Bible is a political hammer that we've been hammered down in this country for too many decades. But to shake it all off and turn it into an astrology, a piece of wisdom from the ancient peoples, that's a lovely thing. That's beautiful. Yes.
Now my website is debunkmywork.com. I also have a 9-book series. I have a 9-book truther series. Debunkmywork.com.
There you go. No, I've just called it up. I will put this together and I'll send you a copy and we'll talk from there.
Thanks, Kate. Have a wonderful day. It was great meeting you.
Great meeting you too. Take care. Bye now.
Take care.